Well, we bring in the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference on a very momentous day in his league and around college athletics. Commissioner, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and I know that there are certainly things that everyone is being guarded about right now, looking forward. But there's no guarding your reaction to the news that Oklahoma and Texas have accepted the invitation of the SEC to join in a couple of years. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul, and we've spent a lot of time talking about items of significance over the last year and a half or so, and this rockets to the top of that list, and appreciate the opportunity, the work done this morning by both boards, and the opportunities ahead for us beginning in 2025.
And so many questions about this, and I also understand that there are complicated issues ahead, and I know in the release of all parties there is a date. Can you address the possibility that this happens sooner than 2025?
We've been focused on that July 1st, 2025 date. Both universities have relationships in their current conference that extend through that period of time, and we want to be respectful of that reality. And this is a ways to go. We're kind of dealing with a similar situation with our friends at CBS Sports as we work through a contract in a really healthy way for broadcasting our games. They've done great work. We want to be great partners with them. So Paul, our focus is forward-looking and begins with the opportunity presented on July 1st, 2025.
Certainly, while there is tremendous excitement in this part of the country, naturally, Commissioner, there are those who are quite unhappy, including some people that you sit with on many important boards, and I know you've always spoken very highly of. Could you address the complicated relationship that a lot of people, at least perceptively, are looking at toward you and the Commissioner of the Big 12, Bob Bowlesby?
Sure. I have had the opportunity to be in various settings around conference commissioners as these matters have played out in real time. Way back in the early 2000s, right in advance of a full gathering of conference commissioners, there was the addition by the ACC of Big East members. You can imagine the tensions there. Play it forward. I was traveling to another full gathering of all the Division I conference commissioners in June of 2010, when the Pac-10 at the time was looking to extend itself into Texas and Oklahoma, and the 6 universities being approached there. I've had subsequent opportunities to watch colleagues work through those issues with expansion, again, of the ACC to the Big East, or the Big 10, adding members from the Big East and ACC. And there are those moments. We all have a responsibility to guide forward, to work, obviously, to lead our conferences, and I'm certain that we will work to do so moving forward. Commissioner,
there's certainly been some criticism, directed from colleagues, which is really unusual, but it happens. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting was, it was almost, I'm going to paraphrase here because that's not exactly what the new Pac-12 commissioner said, but I mean the inference was that this was all going on at the same time that you were sitting in with others, including Bowlesby, with the college football playoff. And I know it's a long question, but you're on the record as saying we were happy with 4. I think one of the last times we talked. Could you address those inferences from people that I'm sure you don't know that well yet, but ultimately will be sitting at very important tables with?
Oh, absolutely. I'm more than happy to be clear and direct. First of all, we are not the conference that's been clamoring for college football playoff expansion. That's come repeatedly from others, from commissioners, from presidents or chancellors of universities, athletics directors, head football coaches, even in the media. The call for college football expansion has been present. And we've said, and I've said to you many times, 4 has worked, is working, and it can continue to work. And I've even said that subsequent to the identification of a format for consideration. And we need to understand that's exactly where we are in this process. Here's a format after looking at a variety of options, and the charge for those of us appointed to a working group was to check our logos, our conference ball caps at the door, and think about college football. So let's just be candid. The Pac-12 hasn't had regular access into the playoff. I happen to be one who thinks an adjustment that opens that up should be considered. And so the allocation of automatic opportunities for conference champions is a nod to offering that consistency of opportunity for many. We could simply stay with the 4 best teams. I'd be satisfied or interested in discussing that further if there are concerns about the 12-team format entered. But I still think the values and the fundamentals and the objectives present in our working group's consideration are relevant today, even with the breaking news of this week, and deserve the kind of consideration that we all committed to provide way back in June. That doesn't mean it's automatic or that it will happen soon. I think there was a rush to think, oh, we'll just change this as quickly as possible. I as you know, was never one of those. But the breaking news doesn't remove the relevance of the need to consider different format moving forward.
Commissioner Sankey, it's interesting also to think about the number of things that have been going on and all the people that are involved in college athletics, but we're talking to you specifically. It was about a year ago that you were convening your athletic directors at a critical moment for COVID and all the things that have taken place since then. I know that that is part of what you do in taking the responsibility many years ago to be the commissioner, but could you talk about the personal side of this, having to deal with so many critical issues that are usually don't occur while you're trying to run a conference as big and as important as the SEC?
Wow, that's a question. So last year on this date, July 30th, as I recall, is when we announced the change to the start of our season in a 10-game format. I remember that because it's my brother's birthday. He lives in Hawaii, so I'll give him a shout out. It's also my father-in-law's birthday tomorrow, so he's turning 80, Paul. So you asked me about the personal side. Those of us who are commissioners are still trying to remember that my father-in-law, Tom Kessinger, is going to turn 80 tomorrow, and that I have to send my brother a text message, and events overwhelm that reality with great frequency. I just was visiting with Charlie Hussey in our office talking about our agenda for work on Monday, and I'm like, I don't even remember what a normal work day constitutes, because the pace since March of 2020 has been so different, the issues coming so rapidly at us. Just the announcement today of a constitutional convention, so we're back to another look at the NCAA, name, image, and likeness issues. I'm fortunate, and I mean this, and I've made phone calls to people, to have a great team of people around me, both in our office and those who serve as outside advisors, Paul, and I can't say that enough, because one of the learning lessons for me around leadership is I can't handle everything alone. I handle a lot, I have a lot of responsibility placed upon me, but this conference, the people in this conference, our presidents and chancellors, our staff, and the people who lead our athletics programs are truly remarkable. And I was reminded, if I may, of the fact we arrived at a unanimous vote yesterday, and expressed my appreciation for Texas A&M University. I heard one of the callers talking about their move. They were a trailblazer into the SEC 10 years ago, and had an expectation for the future, and that's been disrupted because of circumstances around us. Yet their board's gathering on Wednesday. The communication and the learning opportunities for me in working with Kathy Banks moving forward are a hallmark of what it means to be in this conference. And I think that vote yesterday shows the personal aspect of relationships and work and the weight we all bear, yet the ability to work forward to prepare for our future.
Commissioner, before you go, and I mentioned it as we were coming on and you alluded to it, and that was the news about the Constitutional Convention, and I know that's a big topic that you are often called to talk about, but could you give us a reaction to what we are all just learning here a few minutes ago?
Sure. A few things. I had the opportunity to speak a couple of times with Mark Emmert just to understand in the wake of the Alston decision by the Supreme Court how the NCAA might consider adjusting. I'm absolutely open to this conversation. It clearly is something that is needed. What's not clear to me at this point is their path forward. And so I'm going to reserve my thoughts on my path forward for the moment. And really am interested, literally as I was walking over, my phone buzzed with the public announcement. So I'll be interested to digest what happened, learn a bit more about the NCAA Board of Governors conversation. I think the expectation is for rapid consideration of adjustment. And we have a lot of responsibility in the Southeastern Conference, a lot of expectations, a lot of resources and support. A great group of student athletes and leaders in our programs who are trying to figure out how this future plays out, what the regulatory landscape looks like, how the enforcement activities of the NCAA and accountability mechanisms can be reinvigorated in focusing on priorities. And there's a lot on the table. I think it's called a constitutional convention. I don't think I'll be required to wear a powdered wig or anything like that, but it speaks to the seriousness of the moment in many ways.
And it is a serious moment, and I want to close by just coming back to how we all began. And I know that there are just so many complicated issues, but as someone who is at the vanguard of all this, the absolute epicenter. From a personal standpoint, you mentioned this being at the top of the list of things that have happened, but is there any way to appreciate what is a significant historic moment in time?
In all honesty, not as much as you would think. My mind is spinning forward quite rapidly to all that's in front of us. Our athletics directors will meet in a few weeks. We have day-to-day work that takes place, so I had a few check-ins on that. I'm sure there'll be a moment, but it's not today because I recognize how much is to be done. And as I think about leadership lessons, I've benefited from learning, really through observation here, Paul. I've watched our coaches deal with the peaks of success and turn in a moment to the task at hand. I remember with Kevin O'Sullivan when he won the national championship in baseball a few years ago, I said something about, I hope you get to enjoy it a few days, and he went through like tomorrow's task list. And I've had others of those. So there's a lot of work, we're here in a moment, but there's much to be done, and we don't have the luxury, whether it's COVID issues happening around us, the NCAA's announcement, the name, image, and likeness issues, congressional interest, state activities. There is a ton to do, and so I'll relax at my retirement party, I believe.
Well, Commissioner, we'll let it go at that, and I don't think that's anywhere in the near future. Thank you for the time. It's always great to catch up on just a few important issues like today.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. The Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, quite a lot to digest there.